Government just isn't working for the hard-working families of America. We need fundamental change, not more of the same. That's why I've offered a comprehensive plan, a real plan to rebuild America, create 8 million new jobs, invest in education and job training, ensure quality, affordable health care for all. We're going to ask the rich to pay their fair share so the rest of America can finally get a break. A plan to put government back on your side. Read it yourself. Together we can make America work again.
That was Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton, a television ad for his 1992 presidential campaign. And here's Bill Clinton again, his closing statement in the October 11th, 1992 debate.
This debate tonight has made crystal clear a challenge that is as old as America. The choice between hope and fear, change or more of the same. The courage to move into a new tomorrow or to listen to the crowd who says things could be worse.
More of the same. You heard Bill Clinton say it in both clips. It's a phrase Bill Clinton famously and quite effectively used against President George H.W. Bush during the 1992 campaign. And you don't just hear it from Bill Clinton. More of the same is a warning you typically hear from other presidential candidates in other presidential campaigns. But probably not this year. In 2024, with a repeat of the same two candidates from the last presidential election, we likely won't hear either side talk much, if at all, about more of the same. So let's do it ourselves. Let's use this episode of C-SPAN's The Weekly to remember when more of the same was common campaign rhetoric. Yes, in this podcast, we hear more of the same about more of the same.
Hi, I'm Tammy, and joining me today is Paul, as we celebrate 45 years of C-SPAN's unblinking eye on the democratic process.
That's right, Tammy. Since our founding in 1979, C-SPAN has been documenting history with a unique approach, unfiltered, without commentary, and entirely independent from government funding. C-SPAN is funded by fees from our cable and satellite distribution partners, and now with fewer people subscribing to cable and satellite, we're asking you to help support our next 45 years.
It's amazing to see how C-SPAN has adapted and grown. With the rise of digital platforms and social media, C-SPAN has expanded its reach, so no matter where you are, you have 24/7, 365 access to the democratic process.
And as we navigate this ever-changing media environment, C-SPAN's dedication to putting you in the rooms where politics is debated and policy is determined will not waver.
We ask you to support C-SPAN's vital mission. As we celebrate 45 years of service, your contribution helps us to continue to adapt and grow in this digital age. Visit cspan.org/donate to make your contribution today.
Here's to 45 more years of bringing democracy directly to you wherever you get your news. Thank you for your support. Visit cspan.org/donate today to make a difference.
Talking about more of the same was a key component of Bill Clinton's political rhetoric. He said it July 29, 1992, in the New Orleans Superdome.
This president promised 15 million new jobs, no new taxes, and a kinder, gentler nation. But most important, he promised to be president, to accept responsibility. And I quote, he said that he saw life in terms of, quote, missions defined and missions completed. The mission was in America, and I quote, moving forward, always forward. 4 years later, we're moving backward. Most Americans are working harder for less money than they were making 10 years ago. Unemployment now numbers 10 million Americans. 10% of our people are on food stamps. Other countries' economies are growing faster than ours. Since 1980 and the beginning of trickle down, we've gone from first to 13th in the world in wages. We are not moving forward, always forward. And all Mr. Bush has to offer is the politics of blame and more of the same.
And Bill Clinton said it on September 10, 1992, reacting to a big economic speech by President Bush.
I strongly believe we have to go beyond the failed policies of this administration, beyond trickle-down economics. We need real incentives to invest in this country, to educate our people, to control health care costs, and to compete around the world. The plan Mr. Bush outlined today is really just more of the same.
Bill Clinton even used it on behalf of another presidential candidate. Here he is speaking at the 2008 Democratic National Convention for Barack Obama.
They took us from record surpluses to an exploding debt, from over 22 million new jobs to just 5 million, from increasing working families' incomes to nearly $7,500 a year to a decline of more than $2,000 a year, from almost 8 million Americans lifted out of poverty to more than 5.5 million driven into poverty and millions more losing their health insurance. Now, in spite of all this evidence, their candidate is actually promising more of the same.
As for Bill Clinton's opposition, the 1996 Republican presidential candidate used a modified version of the phrase. On the Senate floor, January 10, 1996, here's Senator Bob Dole.
America heard a great deal of rhetoric in 1992 from candidate Clinton, and a great deal of rhetoric since then from President Clinton about, quote, ending welfare as we know it, end of quote. But all the words in the world cannot obscure President Clinton's action of last night. Given his promises, it's no wonder President Clinton used the cover of darkness to veto the truly revolutionary welfare reform bill, which would have kept his commitments. This bill was, of course, the result of almost a year of hard work by a bipartisan group of members of Congress, senators, and very importantly, our nation's governors. The president may have tried to hide this stealth veto by doing it late at night, but he cannot hide this message, the message he's sending to the American people. A loud and clear message that he will stand in the way of fundamental change and instead will fight for the status quo.
And here's Bob Dole again, May 10, 1996, a speech on U.S.-Asia relations. This time, a direct use of the phrase, more of the same, against Bill Clinton.
China enjoys liberal access to our markets, but a wide array of barriers inhibit American exporters, and market access and other Chinese trade practices demand a strategic approach. Not more of the same old ad hoc policy, reactive policy practiced by President Clinton.
Let's hear from other presidential campaigns. During a 2004 debate with President George W. Bush, Democrat John Kerry used the phrase more of the same 3 times. Here's one of them, talking about the war in Iraq.
The president's not getting the job done. So the choice for America is, you can have a plan that I've laid out in 4 points, each of which I can tell you more about, or you can go to johnkerry.com and see more of it, or you have the president's plan, which is 4 words, more of the same.
We heard earlier from Bill Clinton in 2008. That campaign produced a cornucopia of more of the same. More of the same was mentioned at least 9 times during the 2008 Democratic Convention. Here's a version of that from Barack Obama's acceptance speech.
I read the other day that Senator McCain likes to gamble. He likes to roll those dice. And that's okay. I'm making a confession here. I enjoy a little friendly game of poker myself once in a while. But the one thing I know is this. We can't afford to gamble on 4 more years of the same disastrous economic policies that we've had the last 8.
A footnote about Barack Obama and 2008. In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, on April 19, 2008, more of the same became same old stuff.
That's why I'm running for president of the United States, because we need fundamental change, not the same old stuff.
As for the Republicans in 2008, at the GOP convention, Rudy Giuliani spoke for John McCain and gave his take on all the Democratic talk about more of the same.
I learned as a trial lawyer a long time ago, if you don't have the facts, you got to change them. So our opponents want to reframe the debate. They would have you believe that this election is about change versus more of the same. But that's really a false choice, because there's good change and bad change. Because change is not a destination, just as hope is not a strategy.
And here's Mitt Romney accepting his party's presidential nomination at the 2012 Republican Convention.
His campaign seems to have been reduced to smaller and smaller things. As people are facing more and more challenges, and he's been looking for an agenda to carry forward in a campaign other than just forward, more of the same.
In 2024, we probably won't hear too much talk about more of the same from either Donald Trump or Joe Biden. But we have heard them talk that way before in prior presidential campaigns. In 2008, Joe Biden repeated the phrase multiple times and turned it into a call and response during his speech at the Democratic Convention. He was accepting the nomination for vice president and going after John McCain.
Even today, as oil companies post the biggest profits in history, nearly $500 billion in the last 5 years, John wants to give them another $4 billion in tax breaks.
That's not change. That's the same. And during the same time, John voted again and again against renewable energy, solar, wind, biofuels. That's not change. That's more of the same. Millions of Americans have seen their jobs go offshore. Yet John continues to support tax breaks for corporations that send them there. That's not change. That's more of the same. He voted 19 times against the minimum wage for people who are struggling just to make it to the next day. That's not change. That's more of the same. And when he says he'll continue to spend $10 billion a month when the Iraqis have a surplus of nearly $80 billion, that's not change. That's more of the same.
And here's Donald Trump, August 8th, 2016, at the Detroit Economic Club.
In the coming weeks, we will be offering more detail on all of these policies, and the ones we've already rolled out can be viewed on my campaign website. Our opposition, on the other hand, has long ago run out of ideas. All Hillary Clinton has to offer is more of the same: more taxes, more regulations, more bureaucrats, more restrictions on American energy and on American production. More of that.
And when Sarah Palin endorsed Donald Trump, July 19th, 2016, in Iowa, she too talked about more of the same.
And we need to stop the self-sabotage and elect new and independent, a candidate who represents that and represents America first. Finally, pro-Constitution, common sense solutions that he brings to the table. Yes, the status quo has got to go. Otherwise, we're just going to get more of the same. And with their failed agenda, it can't be salvaged. It must be savaged. And Donald Trump is the right one to do that.
And now, a bonus clip. The last time a president and a former president were on the same ballot, like this year, was 1912. And the last rematch in a presidential race, like this year, was 1956. That's when Republican President Dwight Eisenhower beat Democratic Illinois Governor Adlai Stevenson for the second straight time. And with Eisenhower's 1956 win, Vice President Richard Nixon also was reelected. Then in 1968, Richard Nixon ran for president and won the nomination. Here's Nixon's acceptance speech at the Republican convention in Miami, August 8th, 1968.
For the past 5 years, we have been deluged by government programs for the unemployed, programs for the cities, programs for the poor, and we have reaped from these programs an ugly harvest of frustration, violence, and failure across the land. And now our opponents will be offering more of the same, more billions for government jobs, government housing, government welfare. I say it's time to quit pouring billions of dollars into programs that have failed in the United States of America.
That's it for this episode of C-SPAN's The Weekly. A reminder, you could do your own searches in the C-SPAN video library. Just go to cspan.org and use the search bar on top. You too can find lots more of the same of presidential candidates saying more of the same. For now, thanks for listening and happy searching.